My name is Elise Tran. I'm 36, and I've learned that the calmest sentences can break the loudest storms. We were 3 weeks from the wedding, the morning Marcus asked to meet at our favorite coffee shop, the place where we'd picked the vanilla plum cake, where the barista calls everyone love, where the menus are written in looping chalk. It should have felt safe. Instead, the light looked too honest. Marcus kept twisting his ring, silver, simple, my choice, because he hates anything that flashes. His knee bounced under the table. Elise, he said, and my name already sounded like an apology. I need to tell you something. I waited. I've learned that silence makes people choose their truest words. I'm canceling the wedding, he said. The words landed between us like cold metal. I'm in love with Noelle. He didn't say our wedding planner. He said her name the way people say rescue. For 10 seconds, my mind offered me mercy. Maybe he means a floral palette called Noelle, some ethereal vendor brand. But there was nothing abstract in his eyes, only relief, like a man who had been holding a secret too hot to carry. How long? I asked, my voice low, even. The room narrowed to the sound of the espresso machine exhaling. 2 months, he said. We didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened. 2 months. While I answered late-night texts labeled Centerpiece Emergency, while he and Noelle held private vision meetings I wasn't invited to because it's better if I surprise you, while I tasted cake and picked linen tones and paid deposits, they were designing a future without me. Were you? I began. He swallowed. Yes. At least he didn't lie about that. I lifted my coffee, realized my hand had gone perfectly still, and set the cup down again. I looked at him the way a surgeon studies an X-ray, searching for what could be saved. There's a part of me that wanted to explode, to make something messy enough to match what he'd done. But grief has a strange etiquette. Mine, at least, arrived dressed in clarity. I understand, I said. His face moved through confusion into relief so fast it made me dizzy. You do? These things happen, I said, and heard how untrue it sounded even as I said it. I'll handle the cancellations. He exhaled a laugh that should have warned me everything I needed to know. Thank God. I was so worried you'd make a scene. Then, as if he were asking me to pass the sugar, can we still be friends? Sure, Marcus, I said, whatever you need. I stood. We exchanged awkward promises about dividing the apartment like we were switching shifts at a job we both hated. He left with his hands shoved in his jacket pockets, a child who had confessed and been forgiven. I sat there 10 more minutes, tracing the groove his mug left on the table. Then I pulled out my phone. First call, Greg. He is a friend, a lawyer, and the only person I know who can say contractual without sounding like a threat. I might have some vendor agreements to untangle, I said, and a situation with a planner. Elise, he said carefully, are you okay? I'm not fragile, I said. I'm focused. Second call, prestige event planning. The receptionist answered in a voice slick as marble. I asked for Castellano, the owner. It's urgent, I said, regarding Noelle Thatcher. A pause, the kind that measures liability. May I ask what this is regarding? Yes, I said, a policy violation. By the time I walked the 6 blocks home, my phone rang. A warm baritone. This is Mr. Castellano. You wanted to speak about Ms. Thatcher? I do, I said, watching my reflection move across the lobby's mirror as if it were a stranger's. Noelle has been having an affair with my fiancé, Marcus, for 2 months. My wedding is in 3 weeks. He just canceled it. Silence, the expensive kind. We have a strict fraternization policy, Ms. Tran, he said at last. It's in our contracts and our handbook. We've been burned. His voice turned formal. What evidence do you have? I walked him through the timeline. The late-night texts labeled urgent. The vision meetings, where I was explicitly not welcome. The confession this morning. And, if needed, a recording of our conversation at the cafe. We're a one-party consent state, I added, before he asked. Understood, he said. I'm deeply sorry. This is unacceptable. We will review immediately. I'm not asking for a refund, I said, though part of me wanted every dollar back just to make math feel moral again. I thought you should know who represents your company. Thank you for calling me, he said, and for a moment the professionalism slipped. Truly. I hung up and stared at the ceiling of the elevator until the floor dinged open. The hallway smelled like someone else's dinner and eucalyptus cleaner. In our apartment, the one I chose for the afternoon light, I sat on the edge of the bed and made a list. When your life detonates, you learn to number things. Venue, honest approach. Caterer, lost cause. Photographer, college friend, maybe sympathetic. DJ paid in full. Sublet the slot? Florist, cancel by EOD. Keys, change locks, document everything. I could hear Marcus's voice in my head. This is so dramatic. I almost laughed. Dramatic is a midnight playlist and candlelight. This was logistics. The venue manager picked up on the first ring. I told her the truth. Clean, clinical, without rage. My fiancé fell in love with our planner. We won't need the room. She was quiet for a beat that felt like pity. We can refund half the deposit, she said. We understand. The caterer was less merciful. The photographer, bless him, sent a full refund with a line that read, "You didn't deserve this. It felt like a hand on my shoulder from another life." By sunset, the apartment looked like a crime scene where the only evidence was silence. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the magnet that held our seating chart, names that would now sit anywhere they liked. My phone buzzed. Greg again. "Elise," he said, "do not respond to Marcus unless it's logistical. Paper only. If the planner or the company reaches out, forward to me." "I called the owner," I said. He whistled softly. "Good. Let them enforce their own rules." I scrolled through photos I wished I'd never taken. Marcus laughing under string lights. Me holding a sample bouquet that looked like a small, expensive forest. I thought about the way Noelle talks, the curated confidence, the little laugh that makes vendors think she's on their side. Of course he fell for that. Marcus always loved a map someone else drew. I opened my notes app and wrote a sentence I didn't send anywhere. These things didn't happen to me. I did something back. It was petty and cathartic to open social media. I typed, "Wedding's off. Groom fell in love with someone else. These things happen. Anyone need a DJ for December 15? Already paid for." I didn't name Noelle. I didn't need to. People in that world know names the way sailors know stars. By the time the sky turned the color of overripe plums, Castellano called again. "Ms. Tran," he said. "We've terminated Ms. Thatcher, effective immediately." I closed my eyes. The relief wasn't joy. It was oxygen. "Thank you." "We also discovered she used company resources for personal meetings," he continued, voice clipped with contained fury. "We'll refund your entire payment and offer an additional settlement for your inconvenience and to avoid litigation. Would $18,000 be acceptable? There would be a standard NDA, limited to your interaction with Prestige, not your personal life." "Understood," I said. "That's generous." "It's accountability," he corrected softly. "We can't have this getting out." He didn't say what this was, the scandal, the violation, the truth that people sell dreams for a living and sometimes mistake them for permission. He didn't need to. After I hung up, I turned off the kitchen light and stood in the doorway, listening to the apartment breathe. The room felt emptier and somehow cleaner, like a place aired out after guests overstay. On the counter, the magnet held a blank square where the seating chart had been. The absence looked merciful. My phone vibrated one last time. Marcus, 3 words. "We should talk." I let the message sit there, harmless as a match in a glass. Tomorrow there would be fallout. His sister Meredith, the mutual friends who prefer fairy tales, the accusations about ruining careers. There would be noise at hours no one should be awake. I could already feel the shape of 3 a.m. For tonight, I let the quiet do its work. "I understand," I whispered to an empty room. And I did. Not him, myself. By morning, the city had that rainy sheen that makes everything look truer than you want it to. I brewed coffee in a kitchen that felt like a waiting room and watched the drip, drip, drip until it sounded like a metronome for decisions. At 9:12 a.m., an email from Prestige Event Planning slid into my inbox. Subject line sterile. Service termination and disbursement. The body was not. Ms. Tran, effective immediately. Ms. Noelle Thatcher is no longer employed by Prestige. Please find attached 1. Contract termination notice, 2. Full refund confirmation, and 3. Settlement agreement for $18,000, inclusive of damages and confidentiality, limited to interactions with Prestige. We regret your experience. A. Castellano, owner. 3 attachments hummed on the screen like engines. PDF, PDF, wire confirmation. I read the NDA twice. It didn't touch my personal life. It didn't gag my memory. It only corked whatever legal noise might splash back on them. I signed. Sometimes the cleanest revenge is the kind that leaves no fingerprints. Then I began the cancellations in earnest. Florist. We'll be keeping the deposit. DJ. I can release the date and transfer if you find a buyer. Venue. Half refund processed. Photographer. Already sent. See you on better days. Just after noon, I posted one more clean sentence to socials. Appreciate the messages. Please respect privacy. If you know a couple in need of a DJ Deck 15, I'll connect. Already paid. I didn't name anyone. I didn't have to. Noelle made a living on visibility. Her name lived in other people's mouths. By 2 p.m., the texts started arriving like sleet. Cam, mutual. Are you okay? Lily, my side. Proud of you. Need me to run interference? Unknown. How dare you ruin a woman's career? Unknown. You're abusive. He told Noelle everything. Unknown. Slut-shaming witch. I muted the unknowns and wrote Lily back. Bring soup. Bring the kind that forgives. She sent a heart and a ladle emoji. We had our own language. At 5:30 p.m., my doorbell chimed. I checked the camera and saw Meredith, Marcus's sister, standing on my welcome mat like a verdict. Behind her, Marcus pretended to admire the hallway art. I let the intercom do the first talking. State your purpose. Meredith looked directly into the lens. You need to fix this. The weather? I said. Or the part where your brother decided monogamy was optional? This isn't funny, she snapped. Noelle was fired because of you. Marcus is devastated. You owe him the decency of not torching his life. I opened the door, leaving the chain hooked, a symbol that never looked more accurate. I reported an ethics violation to the employer of a person who violated ethics. They made the decision. Take it up with their legal team. Be serious, she said, as if seriousness were a currency she could loan me. He's talking about suing you for defamation. I actually smiled then. We're a one-party consent state, Meredith. I recorded the coffee shop conversation. I have Marcus's confession. And I have every time-stamped vision meeting that excluded the bride for surprises that turned out to be sex. Marcus finally looked at me, and the expression on his face was the expression of a child who tried to steal second and got tagged. Elise, he said, voice soft, palms out. We can talk about this like adults. We did, I said, at the cafe. You said your piece. I said mine. Meredith's mouth tightened into a line you could measure drapes against. You're keeping the deposits, aren't you? And here she caught herself, pronouns a tripwire. He says you're keeping everything. I'm canceling what I paid for and accepting what vendors refund. I'm not bankrolling a wedding for two people who aren't me. That's financial abuse, she declared, triumphant, like she'd found a spell. No, I said, it's math. They left in a flurry of indignation that sounded like heels on tile, and the hallway settled back into its usual hum. Lily arrived 20 minutes later, smelling like ginger and garlic. We ate soup on the couch and watched a show where nothing bad happens, because sometimes that's the only moral a day can hold. Friday was quiet. Too quiet. I should have known peace borrowed time. Saturday, 3:07 a.m., the doorbell screamed. I was awake in an instant, heart hammering. I checked the camera and saw two shapes in the grainy low light. Marcus, unshaven, shoulders hunched, and Noelle, mascara smeared, hair twisted into the kind of bun pain makes. She leaned into the lens. Elise, please, she said. We need to talk. I pressed talk but kept the chain on. Leave now or I call the police. Marcus stepped forward and had the audacity to square his stance like a good man. Open the door, he said. We need to talk, person to person. We have nothing to discuss, I said. You cost yourself everything when you slept with a vendor. Noelle winced at the word vendor as if it were an insult. You ruined me, she choked. My job, my clients. I told your boss the truth, I said. He made the decision. That's called accountability. There was a beat, and then she pulled out her phone like it was a weapon. I have emails, she said. You wrote to me about Marcus. You told me private things, intimate things, about your fights, your doubts. I can forward these to your employer, your parents, your friends, unless you make this go away. Noelle, Marcus hissed, the way people hiss at a fuse that just discovered fire. I stared at her through the narrow gap. Are you trying to blackmail me using confidential client emails? She swallowed. I'm trying to make a deal. I lifted my phone between us. I'm recording. And as you should know from booking venues in this state, one-party consent. I consent. Her face drained to paper. You can't. Say hello to the camera, I replied, and she glared so hard it could have bent metal. Marcus tried to regroup, the way a salesperson tries another angle when the first one fails. Elise, just tell Castellano it was a misunderstanding. Say you were emotional. Say you exaggerated. They'll take you seriously. Because I'm the client? I asked. Because you sound reasonable, he said, and somehow that hurt worse than the affair, this belief that my calm belonged to them. Leave, I said. You're trespassing. And Noelle, punching my doorframe will be vandalism on camera. Don't add stupid to your list. She looked like she wanted to. The muscles in her arm twitched. Then she sagged against the frame, mascara carving tiny rivers down her face. Please, she whispered. I made a mistake. You made repeated choices, I corrected. That's not the same thing. I held the screen steady while they backed into the hall. Noelle turned once, and her expression was a manifesto of all the things entitlement writes when it runs out of paper. I am the exception. I am the story. I closed the door and slid the second lock home. At 9 a.m., I forwarded the video to Greg with the subject line, blackmail attempt, evidence, and attached screenshots of Noelle's threatening draft. She'd helpfully composed the email in her phone's default mail app, forward to Elise's boss, sat in the subject like a dare. Greg responded in 6 minutes. Perfect. I'll draft. Sit tight. At 11:03 a.m., a cease and desist fired from Greg's outbox to Noelle, Marcus, and, because sometimes shame needs an audience, CC A. Castellano. It outlined, with the precision of a scalpel, attempted extortion / blackmail via client confidential emails. Harassment at 3:07 a.m., captured on video. Defamation threats and smear attempts. A promise of civil and criminal action should contact continue. At 12:10, Castellano called me sounding like a storm that already knew where to land. Ms. Tran, I received your counsel's letter. We are appalled. We are pursuing our own legal action against Ms. Thatcher for violating her NDA and client confidentiality. Her contract stipulates a $50,000 penalty for misuse of client information, extending 2 years beyond termination. Would you be willing to cooperate? Absolutely, I said. It felt like saying yes to justice wearing a tie. By evening, the ripple had reached the predictable shores. My phone lit up with an unknown caller ID, Richard Hale, Marcus's father. His voice carried the fatigue of a man who has paid too many bills for grown children. Elise, he said, what the hell is going on? Marcus is at our house with Noelle crying about lawsuits. I told him the story, plain. The affair, the firing, the 3 a.m. visit, the attempted blackmail, the letter, the penalty that would come due like a winter bill. He went quiet. Then, Jesus, she left you for the wedding planner and then tried to blackmail you with your own emails? That's the short version. And now they're both being sued? Yes, I said, and I want no contact. Done, he said. And Elise, that $15,000 we gave Marcus for the wedding? That was for both of you. I want you to have it. Richard, I can't. Consider it an apology from the family. I'll handle Marcus. After we hung up, I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and let a messy laugh shake out of me. Money wasn't the point. But sometimes money is the only language people like the Carringtons. No, not them. Wrong story. People like the Thatchers and Hales understand. And sometimes it's the language you take back. At 2:41 a.m. that night, my phone vibrated with a dozen texts from an unknown number. Unknown, please talk to me. Unknown, he's spiraling. He says I ruined him. Unknown, I made a mistake. I'll leave him if you drop the charges. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Greg. He replied with a single thumbs up and a tiny sword. Lawyers have their humor too. Thursday, 3:03 a.m., the doorbell again. This time, just Noelle. Gaunt. Eyes raw. 5 minutes, she begged when I answered through the intercom. You're violating a cease and desist, I said. I'm calling the police. I don't care, she said. At least hear me. I waited, out of some ancient instinct that still mistakes tears for honesty. I thought he loved me, she said. He says I ruined his life. He blames me for everything. You both blame women for choices men make, I said. Find a new script. Let me come home, she whispered. And that was when I finally understood what ending she'd been trying to write. I wasn't the villain or the witness. I was the emergency exit. This isn't your home, I said, and hung up as blue lights washed the hallway. I declined to press charges when the officers asked, but we filed the restraining order at 9 a.m. with my coffee still warm in my hand. By noon, the apartment felt like itself again. Emptier, cleaner, a room that knew my name. I opened the blinds. Light slid across the floor like a promise that didn't need to be kept to be true. People think justice arrives like thunder. Mostly it arrives with paperwork. By Friday morning, the air around me felt lighter. Not happy, just empty of chaos. That's a kind of peace, too. I didn't hear from Marcus or Noelle for a full day, and for 24 hours, I let myself believe maybe the story had burned itself out. But then Sunday afternoon, Greg called. I could hear the smile in his voice. Elise, you're not going to believe what this idiot just did. I'm assuming by idiot you mean, yes, Ms. Thatcher. She sent threatening emails to your employer, your parents, and a few friends. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Oh, it gets better. She used her old Prestige email address, with her full signature block. Same inbox, same confidentiality footer. The emails include screenshots of your private messages, out of context, and her own replies flirting with Marcus while she was still employed. She's now sent proof of her own misconduct to half the people you know. I didn't even laugh. I just let the irony sink in. Please tell me you still have the footage of the 3 a.m. visit. I have 3 copies. Perfect, he said. That's our hammer. I'll take care of the rest. That night, Greg drafted the kind of letter lawyers send when they want to end a person's entire month, a formal cease and desist. It documented the attempted blackmail at my door, the breach of client confidentiality, the harassment and defamatory communication through her company account, a warning of civil and criminal charges if contact continued. And at the bottom, CC'd in bold, A. Castellano, owner, Prestige Event Planning. I slept well for the first time in weeks. Monday morning, my phone buzzed at 8:17. Castellano's number. He didn't waste time with greetings. Ms. Tran, I've read your counsel's letter. I've also seen the evidence. I'm appalled. His voice was clipped, but beneath it simmered the fury of a man who built an empire and just watched one of his own torch it. We're filing a claim against Ms. Thatcher for $50,000. Her penalty for breaching confidentiality and NDA clauses. She'll lose her certification too. Thank you for cooperating. I thanked him back. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're one of the calmest people I've ever spoken to, Ms. Tran. I hope you know how rare that is. Calm, I said softly, is what happens when the damage is already done. He didn't reply, but I could tell he understood. By midweek, the fallout had reached Marcus's family. My phone lit up with Richard's number, his father's. His voice was heavy with the exhaustion only parents of grown children know. Elise, what the hell happened? Marcus and Noelle are at my house crying about lawsuits. I told him everything, the affair, the firing, the blackmail attempt, the emails. He listened without interrupting, then swore quietly under his breath. Jesus Christ, she left you for her wedding planner and now she's trying to extort you? That's... wow. I didn't plan any of this, I said. I just stopped protecting people from consequences. He exhaled, a sound halfway between regret and anger. Elise, I'm sorry. I thought she was professional. We gave them $15,000 for the wedding. I want you to have it. I can't. You can. Consider it an apology. I'll handle Marcus. He hung up before I could argue further. That evening, I transferred the funds straight into savings, not because I wanted it, but because it was proof. Proof that even people raised to protect their own could still recognize truth when it stood in front of them, holding receipts. Thursday night, 2:58 a.m. The doorbell again. I didn't even flinch this time. It was just Noelle, alone, thinner, makeup streaked like a confession. I let the intercom buzz once before I spoke. You're violating a restraining order. She looked up at the camera. I know. Please, Elise. I just need 5 minutes. Then use them wisely. I'm sorry. she said, voice cracking. I thought he loved me. He's angry all the time now. Blames me for everything. Says I ruined his life by falling for him. The words were tired, rehearsed, the echo of something she'd already said a dozen times in mirrors. You both ruined your own lives, I said evenly. That's what happens when you mistake thrill for love. Her breath hitched. I made a mistake. You made choices. She pressed her forehead to the glass. Let me come home. This isn't your home, I said. It never was, yeah. The police lights washed the hallway 5 minutes later. I didn't press charges, but I did file the permanent order in the morning. Days bled into each other after that. Quiet, almost anticlimactic, the kind of quiet that feels earned. Then, on Tuesday, the final domino fell. Castellano called again. Ms. Tran, Ms. Thatcher has settled her case with us. We received payment in full. She's been blacklisted from every major event planning network. Her credentials are revoked. He paused. We're forwarding you an additional $4,000 to finalize restitution for your trouble. Please consider this case closed. Thank you, I said, truly. When I hung up, I sat in silence and let the number roll through my head. Between the refunds, restitution, and Richard's money, I had come out financially ahead. Emotionally? That was a different ledger altogether. A week later, Richard called again, not as Marcus's father this time, but as a man cleaning up the aftermath of a storm. I wanted you to know, he said. Noel's company withdrew the lawsuits. Marcus is staying with his mother for now. He's different. How so? He's learning what consequences taste like. He hesitated. He asked if you hate him. I don't, I said honestly. Hate would mean I still care. Richard exhaled. Good answer. Before we hung up, he added, almost as an afterthought, I hope you find someone who matches your calm. It's unnerving, but it's also kind of powerful. Thank you, I said, smiling faintly. I already did. That night, Lily came over with champagne and pizza. We toasted to peace, not victory. To being done, she said. To contracts that finally work in your favor, I replied. We laughed until our faces hurt. The next morning, an email arrived with no subject line. From Noel Thatcher. I paid the penalty. They're suing me anyway. Marcus left. I'm moving back home. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. Happiness wasn't the goal. Freedom was. I archived the message, turned off notifications, and went for a walk. The air was warm, early spring. The city had begun to smell like wet leaves and second chances. By the end of the month, Prestige Event Planning sent me one final envelope, a letter of formal apology, a printed check for $22,000, and a note handwritten at the bottom by Castellano himself. Sometimes the only way to protect a brand is to do what's right. Thank you for reminding us of that. I folded the letter into a file labeled Closure. Outside, a thin rain started again, the kind that polishes everything but doesn't flood. I poured a coffee, sat by the window, and watched the drops chase each other down the glass. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was stillness. The kind that tells you the storm is finally done using your name. 3 weeks later, I woke up to a world that no longer felt like it was waiting to explode. No late-night knocks, no messages begging forgiveness, no new rumors twisting my name. Just stillness. Strange, wide, clean stillness. I didn't realize how heavy the noise had been until it was gone. Noel Thatcher, once the picture-perfect wedding planner with a curated smile and a clipboard full of other people's dreams, was now a cautionary tale in her own industry. Word spread fast in those circles, the quiet kind of gossip that doesn't need hashtags. Her name had been pulled from vendor networks, her credentials revoked by the National Association of Event Professionals for gross ethical misconduct. The $50,000 settlement with Prestige drained whatever savings she had left. Someone sent me a link to a blog she tried starting, Rebuilding After Betrayal. 2 posts in, the comment section tore it apart. Within a week, it was deleted. I didn't celebrate. I just closed my laptop and whispered, "You built your own fire." Marcus, on the other hand, was learning how to live without anyone covering for him. Richard kept his word. No more safety nets. Marcus moved back home, claiming he needed time to reset. He got a job at a local print shop, making half of what he once did, and posted vague quotes about growth through loss. I scrolled past them without anger, just observation. He reached out once, a single text. "You look happy. I miss what we had." I stared at it for a while before replying. "You miss the version of me that didn't hold you accountable." Then I blocked the number. 2 weeks later, I met Valentine. Not romantically, just coincidentally. He showed up at the coffee shop where this entire story began. "Are you Elise?" he asked, polite but hesitant. "Yes." He smiled, a tired, familiar kind of smile. "I'm Valentine, Noelle's ex-boyfriend." The air went still for a moment. He laughed softly. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to thank you." He told me everything. How Noelle had been gaslighting him for months about her late nights, her secretive texts, how she'd sworn her phone was for work. When the truth came out, it wasn't just betrayal, it was clarity. "She convinced me I was paranoid," he said. "Turns out I was just early." We compared timelines, her vendor meetings, her client dinners. Every lie matched like puzzle pieces from the same box. We both laughed, not because it was funny, but because disbelief needs somewhere to go. Before he left, he said, "They deserve each other. Two people who mistook chaos for passion." I nodded. "And we deserve the silence that comes after." I used part of the settlement money to pay off my car, part to help my parents fix their roof, and part to start a small side business. Curated and calm. Event organization for people who value peace more than spectacle. No influencers, no lavish nonsense, just small, meaningful gatherings where people remember that love isn't a performance. When I registered the business, the clerk asked, "Would you like to add a tagline?" I wrote, "Proof that good things survive honesty." Occasionally, I still got updates about the others. Noelle was spotted working retail, folding dresses for women planning weddings she'd never touch again. Marcus started a podcast about relationship recovery that fizzled after 3 episodes. Meredith tried defending him online once, but deleted her post after the comments reminded her of facts. Every story runs out of fuel eventually. Theirs did. As for me, I didn't rush into dating. I took myself to dinners. I visited the coast and watched the water refuse to stay still. I let the wind rearrange my hair and decided I didn't need anyone else to tell me I looked whole. When people asked if I regretted anything, I told them the truth. No, I regret ignoring red flags when they looked like romance. 6 weeks after the confession that ended my engagement, I walked into my apartment and found a thick envelope in the mail slot. Final correspondence from Prestige Event Planning. Inside, a check for $22,000. The total settlement, plus an apology note from Castellano. "We believe accountability matters more than reputation. Thank you for reminding us what professionalism should look like." I folded the note neatly, slipped it into a folder labeled "Closure," and tucked it away in a drawer. Then I opened the windows. The air smelled like rain, the soft beginning kind that cleans rather than floods. I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window, listening to the city breathe. The streetlights reflected in the puddles below, turning ordinary water into something gold. That was when I realized I hadn't just survived the scandal, I'd outgrown it. Justice hadn't come as fireworks or courtroom drama. It had arrived quietly, through emails, signatures, and boundaries that didn't bend this time. It wasn't revenge, it was balance. And balance, I decided, was enough. Later that night, Lily texted, "Still think you dodged a bullet?" I sent back a photo of the rain. A whole firing squad. She replied with one line, "You always were calm enough to aim." I smiled. Not bitterly, not sadly, just the way people smile when they finally understand their own strength. The storm had stopped using my name, and peace, real peace, doesn't need a witness.